Hello everyone, Dinop the Dino here. If any of you were born in the mid-90s to the early 2000s, such as myself, during your childhood, you too would have come across the Ice Age films at some point. A film franchise with 5 entries so far, made over 14 years, with each film arguably getting worse over time, as seen by the plot of the first film being centered around 3 unlikely friends, with the heartwarming plot of them trying to return a human baby back to its family, and Scrap being there as occasional comedy relief. Whereas in the fifth film, Collision Course, Scrat accidentally causes the end of the world by launching an asteroid towards Earth, forcing our main characters and their many new friends to team up and save the world. Now, the reason that Blue Sky Studios kept on making Ice Age films was because Ice Age was, and still is, their most successful and famous franchise. It's even made more money than film series like Hunger Games, Superman, and Star Trek. However, I am not here today to talk to you about Ice Age from a film critic's perspective, but rather a paleontologist, as today we will be exploring the inaccuracies of Ice Age. As a disclaimer, I am completely aware that Ice Age is a fictional story set in a fictional world which isn't meant to be realistic. This video is not meant to criticize, but rather to educate and inform using the series as an example. Today we're going to take a closer look at the main 3 species appearing in the franchise, which also happen to be the main 3 protagonists from the very first film. They are ground sloths like Sid, woolly mammoths like Manny, and Smilodon, also known as saber-toothed cats, like Diego. As you could tell from the title, these films take place during the Ice Age, which is correct, for our main 3 species did all live during the last Ice Age. Not only that, but all 3 are found in the same part of the world, on the continent of North America. However, whether all 3 would have been able to meet in the same environment is much less likely. A lot of people assume that during the Ice Age the whole world was completely frozen. This isn't exactly true. As seen by this map of what the world was really like during the Ice Age, we can clearly tell the world is not completely covered in ice. However, the 2 polar ice caps have moved towards the equator, still leaving a massive amount of room for tropical and warm environments to grow, creating a world with varying climates and varying creatures on each continent, much like today. The reason why all this climate talk is relevant to why our 3 main characters couldn't have met is because, like the rest of the world during the Ice Age, North America had a varying climate across its continent, getting warmer the more south you were. This meant certain animals would have preferred certain parts of the continent. Woolly mammoths would have preferred cold open plains in the north of the continent, across Canada and northeastern America, whereas ground sloths would have lived in warm tropical environments near the south in Central America and South America. As you can see, these 2 would have lived in completely different environments, making it extremely unlikely they would have met. However, Smilodon, also known as saber-toothed cats, lived in an environment on temperate forest edges across the USA, placing it somewhere in the center, as we have plenty of evidence that Smilodon hunted ground sloths, as well as living in cool environments like mammoths. Hopefully you should now better be able to see why it would have been unlikely that all 3 animals would have met in the same environment together during the Ice Age. Now we're going to take a closer look at each creature individually, starting with by far the most popular and well known, the woolly mammoth. Physically speaking, Ice Age's depiction of the woolly mammoth isn't actually that bad. It correctly gives it a larger front limb, giving it a diagonal posture, along with short ears and a hairy coat, making it easier to adapt and live in cold and harsh environments. There may be little errors here and there, such as the thickness of the trunk and the weird haircut it has, but overall, it's a good job. Geographically speaking, however, despite being found in North America, woolly mammoths were far more abundant across northern Europe and northern Asia, in places such as Siberia, where they originated from. Woolly mammoths also were adapted to living in vast, cold, open steppes, stretching from Europe to Canada, which had many different plants for woolly mammoths to feed on. They also lived along with woolly rhinos, bison, and wild horses. Woolly mammoth habitats also weren't completely covered in snow and ice, as the films inaccurately depict, as this would have prevented woolly mammoths from being able to eat any of the food in their habitat. But there were still plenty of other types of relatives to the woolly mammoth found in North America, such as its cousin, the Columbian mammoth. Columbian mammoths were larger and stronger than woolly mammoths, with even taller front limbs and domed heads, and much less hair. Columbian mammoths lived and roamed across the north of the United States all the way down to Mexico, across grasslands and savanna. Another relative of the woolly mammoth found in North America was the American mastodon. These were longer, muscular, and more squat relatives to the woolly mammoths. Mastodon lived in woodlands ranging as far as Alaska down to central Mexico. Despite both woolly mammoth relatives being much more likely to have encountered ground sloths and Smilodon in North America, as well as being more common, they both sadly never appeared in any Ice Age films. Moving on to our next creature, we have the Smilodon. It's a member of the saber-toothed cats, and it's important to address that it is not and has no relation to tigers. There is no such thing as a saber-toothed tiger, which is a common mistake the film also makes repeatedly. Physically speaking, Ice Age's Smilodon is much more slender with a more elongated face and a less robust body than a normal Smilodon. This is an important attribute of Smilodon since they relied more on power than agility when hunting large prey. Smilodon originated in North America, but also ended up becoming an apex predator in the South. However, the films focus only on the North American species Fatalis, which lived in an environment ranging from warm savannas in the south to cooler grasslands and temperate forests in the north. But the film inaccurately places Smilodon in an icy cold environment, which may be where a few species would have lived, but no Smilodon could have called this environment home, such a frozen wasteland. Smilodon would have hunted many Ice Age creatures in its time, such as deer, bison, mammoths, mastodon, and ground sloths. Last of our three main creatures we have the ground sloth. As their name suggests, they were prehistoric sloths that lived on the ground, but had one big difference: size. Some of the largest, like Megatherium, could reach up to 4 meters in height on their hind legs. Giant ground sloths like Smilodon were found on both American continents, from tropical forests in the central and south of America, as well as grasslands in the north. Based on Sid the sloth's small size and location, the closest sloth relative would have been the Megalonyx, as it is the only ground sloth to have travelled as far as north as territories in Canada, so it, like Sid, would have preferred cooler climates. But even then, ground sloths could not have survived in such frigid and cold conditions as shown in Ice Age. The other reason Megalonyx is the closest relative to the Ice Age sloth is because Megalonyx is around the average size of sloths, 3 meters long, which is still quite an impressive size compared to modern tree sloths, but also a close size to Ice Age's ground sloth. Even then, the Ice Age ground sloth is far too small and scrawny, by far the most inaccurate animal of the three. Posture-wise, Ice Age's sloths only appear bipedal, which is wrong, because ground sloths would have only appeared on bipedal stances if they were trying to reach food or to intimidate predators. Size-wise, ground sloths were far more stockier and powerful with their sharp claws against predators, whereas Ice Age's sloth is skinny and weak, with its only option against predators being able to run, despite ground sloths fighting off Smilodon across both continents. Which concludes today's analysis on the main three creatures appearing in Ice Age. Now I could go on to analyse every single creature that has appeared in the franchise so far, but I can easily categorise them to explain their inaccuracies, which are quite simple. There are creatures that appeared before the Ice Age and after the extinction of the dinosaurs, such as Gastornis, a large flightless terror bird, and Motherium, a common ancestor to modern elephants. Then there are creatures that were alive during the Ice Age, but weren't found in North America, such as Glyptodonts, which despite the films showing them more like turtles, were actually ancestors of armadillos, Gigantopithecus, which were large apes, relatives of orangutans found in Southeast Asia, Then lastly we have the dinosaurs, which lived long before any creature in the Ice Age, so they would have never met creatures like Smilodons and mammoths. But the reason the films do include them is because of a fictional explanation, which I won't spoil today. And most of them all do have inaccuracies. But by far the most inaccurate is the film's main antagonist, Rudy, which is meant to be a baryonyx, a medium-sized fish-eating dinosaur. But for some reason, is portrayed as a major apex predator throughout the film, much larger than any woolly mammoth or T-Rex. And lastly, we have Scrap, who gets his own category since there was no such thing as him actually during the Ice Age. Instead, he is a fictional species made up due to the pun in his name, which you get by mixing a squirrel and a rat. But that concludes today's videos on the inaccuracies of Ice Age. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like and comment below of any other future videos, Jurassic Park or prehistoric related, you would like to see. If I have left out any creatures, please do ask in the comments below and I will answer any questions. I know I've been absent from YouTube for a while now, but I do hope that I'll get another video out by the end of the summer and a few more gameplay episodes up soon. Until then, feel free to follow me on Twitter, and thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.